The tefillin goes around the head, so it's on the skull, and when it's on the skull, it's connected with a level that's higher than intellect, because the intellect, we know, comes into the skull. We're going to explain what this means spiritually and then practically afterwards. But the tefillin, we know physically, you put it around your head, it's on top of your head. Beinei necha specifically means above your head. That's what our sages said. Why it means Beinei Necha, we're going to see in a second also. Why they use that, why Hashem uses this term of Beinei Necha. And then afterwards, obviously it goes into the arm, into the midas, etc. But even the four parts of the head tefillin go down, we said, are Chachma, Bina, and Das that goes into Chesed, and Das that goes into Gvura. Those are the four. Specifically, we're going to go a little bit farther. It's going to get more spiritual for a second, and then we're going to explain it in a practical way. Because it has a lot to do actually with Shavuos. So we're going to cover a little bit of ground, and then we're going to explain everything practically. So just bear with me a minute.
One moment. Just go back to the four parts. We're telling the four parts that are part of in the head tefillin. They go down into. They represent what? What are the four things again?
So the main thing is to remember that they go around the head. That they're not inside of the head.
Yeah.
Although there's an idea of having tefillin come eventually into your head, and then not physically. Don't try this at home. And then you have the head tefillin are broken up into four parts. The arm tefillin have the exact same four parts, but they're together as one. The head one though has chachma, bina, and then das that is specific to chesed, das that is specific to gvura. We're going to explain exactly what that means in a practical way in about a minute. But those are the four different things.
If there are four parts and there are three levels, what do we do? Chachma, Bina, and Das, and you have four parts that have four.
Because Das could go to Chesed, Das could go to Gvura. In about 5 minutes, everything's going to make sense.
Okay.
Because we're going to jump up a little bit, and then we're going to bring this down specifically. So we're holding by the line, it's towards the bottom of the page, it's about 10 lines up, it's a line that starts Pa'ul.
Yud Zayin still?
Yeah, Yud Zayin, the line Pa'ul, it's about 12 lines up. This is the greatness of brains coming into emotions. You have emotions on their own, and then you have the brains coming into the emotions. Which the root of these brains comes from the hidden mayach, the hidden brain, the Arich Anpin of Ratzain, of Arich Anpin. Which is the Chachma that is Keser, Hanikros Kadesh, which is called holy, the Fisha Ha'emes Muvuretz Leinu Binin Kiddush Mechatos. Because this is the truth, and this is explained somewhere else by Kiddush Mechatos, by the purification that they would do on the worst kind of tumah, and that's for the reason before Shemimena Nimshach Ha'ara be'Abba ve'Ima, is that from Erech Anpin it goes down into Ava, which is Abba ve'Ima, which is Chacham Binim B'Atzilus, or Mehem b'Midis, and then into the Midis. And now we're going to explain. You find in the Likutei Torah on Shavuos, somebody's going to say, what are you mentioning in the Likutei Torah? We're learning Derech Mitzvosecha, right? Why I'm confusing everything. You find a very interesting explanation of what the Torah is. And through this we'll also understand the Tefillin. In fact, it says, Huksha kol ha-Torah l'Tefillin. The entire Torah is compared to Tefillin. In the Maimer of last week of Bamidbar, V'Eya Eslei Amein, in Likutei Torah, it says that what is the greatness of Torah? And it says something very interesting. David HaMelech was punished for saying phrases about the Torah. He says, your Torah was songs for me, it's higher than all that took me out of the world. And Hashem says to him, this is what you think it is, and therefore he forgot a very important halacha, how to carry the aron, and people got into trouble. There was God forbid, Hepech HaChaim over there even because of that. But he was saying he had the outer part of the Torah, he didn't have the inner part of the Torah. And then explains what the inner part of Torah is. And it says that there is one thing that you see by a person even, that is tremendously high, and it is the king, so to speak, of all strengths. A person is made up of many different things, of chachma, of chesed, of netzach, all kinds of things. But there's one thing that supersedes everything, and it's not ratzin. We say usually ratzin controls everything. Whatever a person wants, that's where they're going to put their energy into, etc. No, there's one thing higher. Tainug. There's what?
Oneg.
Yeah, oneg. You got it. So oneg, or tainug, is something that is deep within the person. Ratzin is already the nefesh coming out. It's maybe that it's the nefesh the way the whole nefesh is, because it could put its seichel into what it wants, it could put its midas into what it wants, but that's the nefesh coming out to something else. Tainug is the nefesh by itself, and therefore, and now the Rebbe goes into, there's all kinds of different types of tainug. If you want to talk about beautiful paintings, there's many types of beautiful paintings. You want to talk about beautiful songs, there's different types of beautiful songs, etc. And he goes through all the keiches, talking about how many different types of tainug there are. And he says, but all of that is nothing. All of that is the psoilus of the tainug of spirituality, of the tainug of specifically about Hashem. And the Torah comes from, then he says, comes from a level that's higher than tainug, but it comes down into tainug, and he gives a very interesting explanation. You have the brain, you have the skull, and you have the hairs. There's a din in treifis, which is very appropriate, which shows us the importance of the skull. If there's a hole in the skull, there's nothing to talk about. You don't have to check the animal anymore. Treif. The animal was walking a second ago with that hole in the skull. It doesn't matter. Treif. Why? With a lung, it's not so clear. Okay, it's not glatt. But where was the hole? What kind of hole? How many holes? All kinds of stuff. With the skull, there's nothing to talk about. With the hair, though, are you allowed to shave an animal's hair and then shechta? Yeah, of course. You can do whatever you want. The hair is not doing anything. You say you gave someone a haircut, nobody's going to say, oh, that's terrible. So, even if it's not if it's Yomer, but it's a different kind of thing. And that's because the skull surrounds the brain. So too physically, the Ratzin and Tainug are higher than the brain and are higher than the emotions.
If I could join you, the Ratzin relates to the needs of the Nefesh Behema, expresses itself to Ratzin. Tainug is the needs of the Nefesh.
I would say both have both.
Separated from the Nefesh. Ratzin relates to the Behema, the needs, it's hungry, it wants sleep, whatever. This is Ratzin, has a Ratzin for it. And Tainug is the expression of the Neshama.
Two kinds of Ratzin.
Different than the expression of the Behema.
There's two kinds of Ratzin, two kinds of Tainug, which is good. We should go on this point because it's going to teach us a very important lesson. You have the Ratzin of the Nefesh Bahamis. Usually when we think of Ratzin, it's the Nefesh Bahamis, because the Nefesh Bahamis, the Tanya says right away, that what does Ratzin do? It takes every single strength. It says, it talks about the Nefesh Bahamis, and it mentions 11 dirty crowns. Why? Because the midah of every midah that the Nefesh Bahamis has is controlled by I want. So therefore, I want, so therefore I'm going to use Netzach. I want, so therefore I'm going to use Hayd. I'm going to use whatever Koyach the Nefesh Bahamis has. It's controlled by Ratzin, and it can be a very messy kind of thing. Then there's the Tainug of the Nefesh Bahamis, which is terrible. That's where the Yetzer Hara really grabs a person, because it's got the etzem of the person. It says, you want to have a tainug? You want to have a tainug in physical stuff that's going to take you away from Hashem? First of all, I'm not even going to tell you to do something osur. I'm just going to tell you the Yetzer Hara says, have a tainug in something physical instead of something spiritual, and then the Yetzer Hara says, I got you. And then it says, but have a tainug in something that's a small isur, and then it says, now I got you 1,000 times over. And the only way to do that is the Heipech HaTainug is the tsar that a person has pain. I rip myself away from Hashem. He cries. That's the tsar that breaks the klipa finally. In the Nefesh Lakis, though, you have both these two. Just give me a second. So the Nefesh Lakis also has both of these two strengths. The Ratzin of the Nefesh Lakis is I want to serve Hashem. I'm going to go do something. It gives you a jolt. But it's to something else. I want to serve Hashem. Therefore, I'm going to put on Teffilin. So your Ratzin is for the Teffilin now. I want to serve Hashem, therefore I'm going to this or that. The Tainug is you enjoy the Noyam of Hashem. So you could say something interesting. You could say that the Nefesh Lakis works mostly with Tainug, but also has Ratzin. And you could say that the Nefesh Bahamis really works a lot more with Ratzin and also has Tainug. You could say something like that. So what you're saying is right, but it has to be defined.
I want ice cream comes from the needs of the Nefesh Behema to have sugar or whatever it is that's in the ice cream.
Absolutely.
And it motivates itself to go fulfill that. That's called Ratzin. Okay, the fact that I want the essence of the ice cream, So this is where it comes to Taina. Taina is very separate from Ratzon. The Nefesh Behema expresses itself through the need of Ratzon. The Neshama expresses itself through Taina. They both try to get the group to move along, but they're two different sources that they come from.
Okay. In base medrash, I always have a debate. Yeah, everyone sees things different. No, you're right. In terms of, but I would say that both have a little bit of both. It could be you're talking from a different mimer, from a different point, but it's good. I mean, it's good. We could have this discussion, but in general, when we're talking about now, when we're talking about Teffilin, we're talking about mostly nefesh elikis, and these two things, Tainug and Ratzin, can come down into Ava, into Chacham and Bina, which means that what is going to awaken the mind? First of all, there's a halacha. If somebody says, it's not halacha, it's Maimer Azal, but if somebody says, what Masechta should I learn? Should I learn Shabbos? Should I learn Pesachim? So what do you tell a person? A person should always learn in the area that they want, because these wants and this enjoyment also is going to give a strength to the learning. The person's going to like it better. I can't sit there if I'm going to learn Mayit Katan and I'm going to get upset and I'm not going to be into it and it's going to be hard for me and I'm not going to get anything out of it. I'll get something out of it and I'll get iskafia, but if a person says, wow, I really like Bava Kama, so go learn Bava Kama. I really like Shabbos, learn Shabbos. I like Megillah. That's what the person should be learning, where they want. It's connected to his specific neshama and his specific mission also, at least at that time. And at different times, the person can have a different mission. So that's the first thing. When that happens, the person thinks clearer. There's more chachma. The chachma takes in tainuk. The chachma is very connected with tainuk. There's enjoyment that comes down to chachma. The ratzin is more with bina and more with kavura. It's more with. So yes, the nefesh ba'amis works more with ratzin. I'll agree with that. But you have a klal gadol. It says that zel umasa. So whatever you have in nefesh ba'amis, you have also on the side of kedusha. Whatever you have on the side of kedusha, you have also. But the difference, what the nefesh ba'amis works with. For example, the Frierdiker Rebbe gives a klal. He says the difference between intellect and emotion. So he says the nefesh elikis is mostly intellect, and it also has emotions. First you have to think, what does Hashem want? Then you say, okay, now I'm going to love what Hashem wants. I love Hashem. I'm going to be fearful of something that's bad for me, that's going to take me away from Hashem. But the main part of nefesh elikis is seichel. And the main part of nefesh ba'amis is midas. Now, when somebody says nefesh ba'amis doesn't have seichel, it has tons of seichel, but it's a seichel that's dragged after the midas, after the ratzin, after the... So we're talking about what's the ikr. When we're talking about what's the ikr, you're right. The main part of nefesh ba'amis works with ratzin. The main part of nefesh elikis works with tainuk. But when you're talking about with the makeup of each one has a little bit. It's just what they utilize mostly. Then, and this is an important part, the midas are not separate from zeichel. There's a principle in Chassidus, mayach shalit ala lev, which doesn't mean that most people translate it, that the mayach overcomes the heart. Of course it could mean that, and it should mean that, but that's not all that it means. Shalit is also that it rules the heart and it changes the heart around. So 1 second, you don't want that. If I give you a glass of water, you say, well, thanks, it's a hot day, it's very nice of you. Somebody comes in and says, you don't want to drink that, that's full of this and that or whatever. My intellect has now changed, I have more what to base my decision off of. And then a third person could come in and say, this guy's just tricking you, and then right away, I want it again. So your knowledge and everything will change your emotions to the thing. The same thing when it talks about intellect growing emotions. There's two types, and this is a little bit of a preview to a few lines down, but we'll discuss it so it makes sense. After the ratzin,